I'm Adrian, and welcome to the latest episode of Fight Scene Breakdown. On this series, we take a look at fight scenes from a movie-making standpoint as well as a martial arts standpoint. Every one of the 60-plus episodes is available on the playlist below. Today we're going to be analyzing the fight between the Falcon, Winter Soldier, and the new Captain America, John Walker. In terms of the story, I won't give too much away in case you haven't had a chance to see the series on Disney Plus yet, but the main conflict lies in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier wanting John Walker, this new Captain America, to literally and figuratively yield his mighty shield. They don't believe that he is a good fit to follow in the steps of Steve Rogers, especially after what he did prior to this scene. John Walker is a man that is not humble and modest. He is quite the opposite. He is loud and abrasive, and constantly seeks reassurance that he is the best. So naturally, when the Falcon plainly tells him that John made a mistake, this does not bode well with John. Moments later, they begin fighting, with the goal of the fight being to get that shield from him. The fight works exceedingly well from a narrative standpoint, as the conflict between these two and Walker has reached a boiling point, and now that they are past trying to solve their problems with words, they turn to fisticuffs. The fight is shot well, as there are plenty of wide angles, low angles, and good framing to observe the action. But a problem that permeates many of the fight scenes in this series is that they tend to be a bit overcut. Not to the degree of something completely unintelligible like the fights in Transporter 3, but certainly not as well as the fight scenes in Captain America Winter Soldier or even Captain America Civil War. A great place to see this tendency to overcut is right in the start of the fight. We go from the extreme wide shot to establish the scene, quickly cut right to a close-up with Bucky blocking a shield hit, then cut to a pretty cool looking low angle to see the spin hook kick whiff, and then cut straight away for just a split second to see it end, only to cut to a very quick shot of Walker throwing up. And that very quick shot is followed by a tiny blink and you miss it shot of Walker turning around to grimace and then cutting to another shot to see him throw a side kick. And even that kick is not allowed to breathe, as we cut less than a split second later just for him to turn around and cut once again to see the impact of the shield on Bucky's arm. When you play it all in sequence, you get about 4 seconds of fight choreography with 9 cuts. That's about 2 to 3 cuts per second, and not only are those numbers kind of mind-boggling, it just leads to a very disorienting sequence. In action movie parlance, there are 2 very distinct ways of shooting and cutting your fight scene, and that is Hong Kong style action cinema and Western style action cinema. If you'd like a more in-depth explanation behind these 2 styles and how they relate to the choreography on display, check out my fight scene breakdown of Michael J. White's excellent final fight scene in Blood and Bone, available on the Fight Scene Breakdown playlist or in the description below. Setting the tendency to overcut aside, the scene is a great display of how these 3 very different fighters interact with each other. Let's start with taking a look at the star of the show, the Falcon. What gives several of his techniques the Falcon touch per se is that he uses the wings to turn it into a superpowered technique to compensate for his total lack of super strength, such as right here, turning this backflip kick into a superpowered one. He even follows it up with a spinning right hook aided by his jet. Moving on to John Walker, what was very well achieved is how he mimics the original Captain America's fighting style, but he isn't quite there just yet. He constantly uses a shield to either defend or bash his enemies, but it's used in a much more blunt way, with none of the finesse or precision that Steve had. In other words, he treats it more like a vibranium rock rather than a shield. As far as his hand-to-hand techniques go, he also fights very similar to Steve, relying on a series of good close-quarters elbows and punches, along with great effective kicks, such as the aforementioned push kick, along with the side kick and spin hook kick. Unlike Steve, he really leans into his brutality, oftentimes overthrowing the shield on purpose, or even completely disarming his enemy on the ground and following it up with an attempted shield bash that would have undoubtedly caved in the Falcon's head, had it not been for Bucky interfering with a great tackle. This segues well into Bucky. Unfortunately, he's not the fighter he was in Winter Soldier, which makes sense, since this is Bucky Barnes fighting and not a brainwashed killing machine. What this equates to in his fighting style is something resembling much more of a rock'em sock'em kind of guy, mostly relying on a series of elbows, haymakers, tackles, and maybe a low kick or 2. While I do very much miss his Sistema-inspired fighting style seen in Winter Soldier, it still fits with him being a less flashy and more pragmatic fighter than the other 2 combatants seen here. If you'd like to see more of his fighting style analyzed in the MCU, check out How Many Fighting Styles Does a Winter Soldier Know, available on the Fighting Styles playlist. All in all, I enjoyed this centerpiece fight of the show and thought it was well put together. And although it has a tendency to be a bit overcut in segments, such as the one analyzed, the excellent cinematography and choreography help out in elevating this fight scene to one of the best, if not the best, in the entire series. What did you think of the fight? Would you like to see any other fight analyzed from the show? Let me know in the comments below, and remember to hit that subscribe button to be notified when the next video premieres. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. I'd like to thank each one of my Patreon members, as their contribution helped in the making of this video. If you'd like to contribute and appear in the credits in the future, my Patreon page is Godzillarex, and it's in the description below.